You're alone now, aren't you? Just you and these words, floating in the vast expanse of your mind. What separates you from nothingness at this very moment? Is it the air you breathe, the thoughts that dance across your consciousness, or simply the fact that you exist? As you ponder these questions, you're embarking on a journey that has fascinated philosophers for millennia. The concept of nothingness, of void, of absolute absence. It's a paradox that has both tormented and inspired some of the greatest thinkers in history. Imagine, if you can, the complete absence of everything. No matter, no energy, no space, no time. It's an impossible task, isn't it? Your mind rebels against the very notion, and yet this concept of nothingness has been a cornerstone of philosophical inquiry since humans first gazed at the stars and wondered about their place in the universe. The ancient Greeks, those pioneers of Western philosophy, grappled with this concept in their own unique ways. Parmenides argued that nothingness couldn't exist because if it did, it would be something, thus negating its own nature. It's a bit like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands. The moment you think you've grasped it, it slips away. But then came Democritus, who proposed that the universe was made up of atoms moving through empty space. This void, this nothingness between atoms, was as real and necessary as the atoms themselves. Can you feel the tension building? The intellectual tug-of-war between these ideas has echoed through the centuries. Fast forward to the 17th century, and you'll find yourself in the company of René Descartes. Remember his famous words, "I think, therefore I am." Descartes was wrestling with the spectre of nothingness, trying to find an unshakable foundation for knowledge. In the face of potential nothingness, he found certainty in his own existence as a thinking being. But what about everything else? Could it all be an illusion, a dream, leaving you alone in a void of your own consciousness? As you mull over these ideas, you might feel a chill run down your spine. The concept of nothingness can be unsettling, even terrifying. It's no wonder that many philosophers have recoiled from it, seeking instead to prove the fullness and richness of existence. Take Leibniz, for instance. He asked the question that might be forming in your mind right now. Why is there something rather than nothing? It's a deceptively simple query that opens up a chasm of philosophical inquiry. Leibniz argued for the principle of sufficient reason, the idea that everything must have a cause or explanation. In his view, the existence of the universe itself required an explanation, leading him to posit the existence of a necessary being, God. But not everyone found this answer satisfying. As you delve deeper into the philosophical perspectives on nothingness, you'll encounter thinkers who embrace the void, finding in it not terror, but liberation. Consider the existentialists. Jean-Paul Sartre, writing in the aftermath of World War II, proposed that existence precedes essence. In other words, you're thrown into existence without any predetermined purpose or nature. You might feel a weight lift from your shoulders as you contemplate this idea. There's no grand plan, no cosmic script you're obligated to follow. You're free to create your own meaning in the face of, well, nothingness. But with this freedom comes responsibility. As you navigate through life, every choice you make, every action you take, is a declaration of what you believe a human being should be. It's as if you're painting on the blank canvas of existence, with each brushstroke defining not just your life, but contributing to the collective understanding of what it means to be human. This existentialist perspective invites you to stare into the void without flinching. It challenges you to find courage in the face of meaninglessness, to create purpose where there is none inherent. Can you feel the vertigo of this freedom? The dizzying possibilities that open up when you accept that you're not bound by any predetermined essence? But let's pull back for a moment. As you contemplate these ideas, you might find yourself wondering about the nature of your own thoughts. Are they something or nothing? When a thought fades from your consciousness, where does it go? Does it dissolve into nothingness, or does it continue to exist in some form, perhaps in the physical structure of your brain? These questions lead us to the intersection of philosophy, and cognitive science. Modern philosophers and scientists are still grappling with the nature of consciousness and its relationship to nothingness. Some argue that consciousness is an emergent property of complex information processing, while others suggest that it might be a fundamental aspect of the universe, as basic as space and time. As you ponder these possibilities, you might feel a sense of awe at the mystery of your own existence. Every moment of consciousness is a triumph over nothingness, a flickering light in the vast darkness of potential non-existence. And yet, this nothingness isn't just an absence. It's the backdrop against which all of existence plays out. Think about it this way. Without the concept of nothingness, could we even comprehend something? It's the contrast between being and non-being that allows us to perceive and understand the world around us. In this sense, nothingness isn't just a philosophical curiosity. It's an essential component of our ability to make sense of reality. This idea brings us to the realm of Eastern philosophy, where nothingness takes on a different character altogether. In Buddhist thought, for example, the concept of sunyata, or emptiness, is not a nihilistic void, but rather the absence of inherent existence. As you reflect on this idea, you might begin to see the world around you in a new light. The solid objects that surround you, even your own body and thoughts, are not as fixed and permanent as they might appear. Everything is interconnected, constantly changing, without any fixed essence. It's a perspective that can be both liberating and disorienting. If nothing has inherent existence, what can you hold on to? What remains when everything is stripped away? Perhaps, as some philosophers have suggested, what remains is potential itself. Nothingness, in this view, is not a barren void but a field of pure possibility. It's the blank page before the first word is written, the silence before the first note is played. Can you feel the creative power in this idea of nothingness? It's not an ending, but a beginning, the source from which all things emerge. As you sit with these thoughts, you might find your perspective shifting. The fear of nothingness that may have gripped you earlier might begin to transform into a sense of wonder. After all, if existence emerges from nothingness, then each moment is a kind of miracle, a spontaneous creation ex nihilo. But this raises another question. Is true nothingness even possible? Some philosophers argue that the very concept is self-contradictory. If nothingness existed, wouldn't it then be something? This paradox has led some thinkers to propose that existence itself is necessary, that there must always be something, rather than nothing. On the other hand, quantum physics has revealed a universe that seems to flirt with nothingness on the smallest scales. Virtual particles pop in and out of existence in the quantum vacuum, challenging our understanding of what it means for something to exist. As you contemplate these ideas, you're brushing up against the limits of human understanding, peering into the mysteries that lie at the heart of reality itself. So where does this philosophical journey leave you? Perhaps with more questions than answers. But isn't that the nature of philosophy? To question, to probe, to push the boundaries of our understanding. As you return to your daily life, carrying these thoughts with you, you might find yourself seeing the world differently. The objects around you, the people you interact with, even your own thoughts and feelings, all of these exist against the backdrop of potential nothingness. Each moment is a delicate balance between being and non-being, a dance on the edge of the void. And yet, here you are, thinking, feeling, existing. In the face of nothingness, you persist. Your very ability to contemplate these ideas is a testament to the something that has emerged from the potential nothing. As you move through your life, you're not just a passive observer of existence, you're an active participant, continually bringing form to the formless, meaning to the meaningless. So the next time you find yourself alone with your thoughts, remember this journey into the philosophical perspectives on nothingness. Let it remind you of the preciousness of existence, the mystery of consciousness, and the power you have to create meaning in your life. In the vastness of potential nothingness, you are here, now, reading these words, thinking these thoughts, and that, in itself, is something truly remarkable. Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine yourself floating in the vast expanse of space, far from any celestial body. What do you see? What do you feel? The emptiness surrounding you might seem absolute, a perfect vacuum stretching infinitely in all directions, but is it truly empty? As you open your eyes and continue reading, prepare to have your understanding of nothingness challenged and expanded. The concept of a vacuum, a space entirely devoid of matter, has fascinated scientists for centuries. It's a journey that has taken us from the macroscopic world we can see and touch, down to the mind-bending realm of quantum mechanics. And you, dear reader, are about to embark on this intellectual adventure. Let's start with a thought experiment. Imagine you have a jar, and you begin to remove everything inside it, all the air, all the dust particles, every single atom. What would you be left with? Intuitively, you might think you'd have a perfect vacuum, a space containing absolutely nothing. This idea of a perfect vacuum, or void, was once widely accepted in scientific circles. But as you're about to discover, the reality is far more complex and fascinating. In the 17th century, you would have found yourself in the middle of a heated debate about the nature of vacuum. On one side, you'd have Aristotle's ancient assertion that nature abhors a vacuum, suggesting that empty space was impossible. On the other, you'd have the emerging experimental evidence from scientists like Evangelista Torricelli, who in 1643 created what was then the closest approximation to a vacuum using a tube of mercury. Imagine yourself in Torricelli's workshop, watching as he inverts a mercury-filled tube into a basin. The mercury level drops, leaving what appears to be empty space at the top of the tube. This simple yet groundbreaking experiment not only produced a partial vacuum, but also led to the invention of the barometer. As you contemplate this, you might feel a sense of wonder at how such a seemingly simple experiment could overturn centuries of philosophical assumptions about the nature of space. Fast forward to today, and you'll find that our understanding of vacuum has evolved dramatically. Modern physics tells us that even the most perfect vacuum we can create is far from empty. In fact, it's teeming with activity at the quantum level. Picture yourself shrinking down to the size of a subatomic particle. At this scale, the apparently empty space around you is actually a turbulent sea of virtual particles, popping in and out of existence. These particles, which include all types of fundamental particles like electrons and quarks, appear in pairs and almost immediately annihilate each other. It's like watching a cosmic dance where partners appear out of nowhere, twirl for a split second, and then vanish. This phenomenon, known as quantum fluctuation, is a direct consequence of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. You might remember this principle from your physics classes. It states that we can't simultaneously know both the position and momentum of a particle with perfect accuracy. But its implications go much deeper. It suggests that at the quantum level, the energy of a system can fluctuate spontaneously, giving rise to these virtual particles. As you ponder this, you might feel a sense of vertigo. The empty space around you is not empty at all, but a roiling brew of potential energy and fleeting particles. It's as if the fabric of the universe itself is alive with possibility, constantly creating and destroying on a scale too small and fast for us to perceive directly. But the strangeness doesn't stop there. These quantum fluctuations have observable effects on the macro world you inhabit. Have you ever heard of the Casimir effect? Imagine two uncharged metal plates in a vacuum, placed very close to each other. Logic might tell you that nothing should happen. After all, they're not charged, and there's nothing between them, right? But in reality, these plates are pushed together by an invisible force. This force arises because the space between the plates is too narrow for some of the virtual particles to exist, while the space outside the plates has no such restriction. This creates a pressure difference that pushes the plates together, It's as if the nothingness outside the plates is more than the nothingness between them. Can you feel your conception of empty space starting to shift? Now let's zoom out and consider the vacuum of space on a cosmic scale. If you were to travel to the space between galaxies, you'd find yourself in what's arguably the emptiest realm in the known universe. But even here, in the vast intergalactic medium, perfect emptiness eludes us. As you drift through this cosmic void, you'd encounter about 1 atom per cubic meter, incredibly sparse compared to the air you're breathing right now, which contains about 10 pi on 25 molecules per cubic meter, but not nothing. You'd also be bathed in cosmic microwave background radiation, the afterglow of the Big Bang itself. This omnipresent radiation fills every corner of the observable universe, a constant reminder that even the emptiest space we know of is still something rather than nothing. But wait, there's more. As you contemplate the vastness of space, consider this mind-bending fact. The vacuum of space itself has energy. This is the famous vacuum energy, or zero-point energy, the lowest possible energy that a quantum mechanical system can have. In classical physics, it would be perfectly reasonable for a system to have zero energy. But in the quantum world, thanks to those pesky uncertainty relations, even the ground state of a system has fluctuations that give it a non-zero energy. It's as if the fabric of space itself has an intrinsic energy woven into its very nature. This vacuum energy has profound implications for our understanding of the universe. Some physicists speculate that it might be related to dark energy, the mysterious force causing the accelerating expansion of the universe. Imagine that, the nothingness of space potentially driving one of the most significant large-scale behaviors of our cosmos. As you mull over these ideas, you might start to feel that your common sense notions of empty and full are breaking down, and you'd be right. The more deeply science has probed into the nature of vacuum, the more it has revealed a rich, complex, and dynamic reality underlying what we perceive as empty space. But let's dive even deeper. Have you ever wondered about the nature of space itself? Is it just a backdrop against which events unfold, or is it a physical entity in its own right? This question has puzzled physicists for centuries, and the answer has profound implications for our understanding of the universe. Isaac Newton viewed space as an absolute fixed entity, a kind of cosmic stage on which the drama of the universe played out. But then along came Albert Einstein, and everything changed. In Einstein's theory of general relativity, space, or more accurately space-time, is a dynamic entity that can bend, warp, and even ripple. Imagine you're holding a large rubber sheet representing the fabric of space-time. If you place a heavy object like a bowling ball on this sheet, it will create a depression. This is analogous to how massive objects like stars and planets warp the fabric of space-time. Other smaller objects, like planets or light itself, follow the curves in this warped space as they move. This concept might seem abstract, but it has very real and measurable effects. The bending of light around massive objects, the precession of Mercury's orbit, the slowing of time in strong gravitational fields. All these phenomena, which have been observed and confirmed, are consequences of the dynamic nature of space itself. But Einstein's revelations were just the beginning. In recent years, scientists have directly detected gravitational waves, ripples in the fabric of space-time, caused by cataclysmic events like the collision of black holes. As you read this, imagine ripples spreading out across the cosmic pond, carrying information about some of the most energetic events in the universe. These discoveries have profound implications for our understanding of empty space. Far from being a featureless void, space is a dynamic, flexible entity capable of carrying energy and information. It's as if the cosmic vacuum is a kind of medium, not the luminiferous ether that 19th century physicists imagined, but something far stranger and more fundamental. Now let's push even further into the bizarre. Have you ever heard of quantum entanglement? It's a phenomenon where particles can become entangled in such a way that the quantum state of each particle cannot be described independently, even when the particles are separated by a large distance. Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance, and it seems to violate our intuitive understanding of how the universe should work. How can two particles instantaneously affect each other across vast distances of apparently empty space? Some physicists have proposed that quantum entanglement might be telling us something profound about the nature of space itself. Perhaps what we perceive as empty space is actually a highly structured network of quantum information. In this view, the vacuum is anything but empty. It's a complex web of relationships that underlies and connects everything in the universe. As you ponder this, you might feel a sense of connection to the seemingly empty space around you. Every cubic centimeter of this nothingness might be a node in a vast cosmic network, linking you to the farthest reaches of the universe. But our journey into the nature of vacuum and empty space doesn't stop at the boundaries of established science. As you read this, researchers around the world are pushing into new frontiers, asking questions that challenge our fundamental understanding of space, time, and emptiness. For instance, some theories of quantum gravity, attempts to reconcile quantum mechanics with general relativity, suggest that space itself might be quantized. Just as matter comes in discrete packets, atoms, electrons, quarks, space too might have a fundamental indivisible unit. If this were true, what you perceive as continuous smooth space would actually be composed of tiny atoms of space itself. Imagine zooming in on the space around you, going deeper and deeper until you reach this fundamental unit. At this scale, our usual notions of distance and dimension might break down entirely. Some theories even suggest that space and time might emerge from more fundamental entities, much as the smooth flow of water emerges from the collective behavior of countless water molecules. These ideas might seem abstract, even unbelievable. But remember, a century ago, the ideas of relativity and quantum mechanics seemed equally outlandish. As you contemplate these cutting-edge theories, you're participating in the grand tradition of human inquiry, pushing the boundaries of our understanding of the universe. Now let's bring our journey full circle and return to the vacuum chamber we started with. As you peer into this manufactured emptiness, you now know that it's anything but empty. It's a seething quantum foam of virtual particles, a flexible medium that can carry gravitational waves, a node in the vast network of quantum entanglement, and possibly even a coarse-grained approximation of an underlying quantized space-time. The nothingness you're looking at contains all the rich physics of the vacuum, the lowest energy state of the universe, but one that's pregnant with possibilities. In this vacuum, virtual particles can sometimes be coaxed into becoming real, leading to phenomena like Hawking radiation from black holes. The energy of this vacuum might be driving the expansion of the universe itself. As you step back from the vacuum chamber, take a moment to look around you. The apparently empty space that surrounds you, that you move through every day without a second thought, is revealed to be a complex, dynamic and fundamental part of the universe. It's a far cry from the featureless void that philosophers and scientists once imagined. In your journey through the scientific understanding of vacuum and empty space, you've traveled from the macroscopic world of air pumps and mercury columns, through the strange realm of quantum mechanics, to the very fabric of space-time itself. You've seen how our understanding of nothingness has evolved, revealing ever more richness and complexity. And yet, for all we've learned, mysteries remain. What is the true nature of vacuum energy? How does it relate to dark energy? What would a full theory of quantum gravity reveal about the structure of space itself? These questions and many more await answers. As you go about your day, moving through the air around you, remember the hidden complexity of the space you inhabit. Every cubic centimeter of apparent emptiness is a microcosm of the universe's deepest mysteries. The vacuum, far from being nothing, might just be the key to understanding everything. In the end, perhaps the most profound lesson from our scientific exploration of vacuum and empty space is this: In nature, there is no such thing as nothing. The universe, in its deepest essence, is always something dynamic, complex, and full of potential. And you, dear reader, are an intrinsic part of this grand cosmic dance between being and becoming, form and emptiness, something and nothing. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a vast desert, the endless expanse of sand stretching out before you. In this moment you might feel small, insignificant, a mere speck in the grand scheme of things. This sensation, this brush with nothingness, is not unlike the concept we're about to explore, zero, a number that represents nothing and yet means everything in the world of mathematics. You might think that zero is just another number, a simple concept that you've known since childhood. But oh, how wrong you'd be. The story of zero is a saga spanning millennia, crossing continents and revolutionizing not just mathematics, but human thought itself. So let's embark on this journey together, you and I, tracing the path of zero from its nascent beginnings to its pivotal role in modern mathematics. Cast your mind back to ancient times. Imagine you're a Babylonian merchant, tallying your goods on a clay tablet. You have a sophisticated number system, but something's missing. You can write 11, but how do you distinguish it from 101 or 1001? The absence of a symbol for nothing is causing confusion, and you feel the frustration building. This was the reality for many ancient civilizations. They had advanced mathematics, but lacked a crucial piece of the puzzle. Now let's hop over to ancient Greece. You're walking through the agora, overhearing heated philosophical debates. The concept of nothing is controversial here. Greek philosophers, brilliant as they were, struggled with the idea of zero. To them, it represented the void, a concept that clashed with their belief in a universe full of matter. Aristotle himself argued against the existence of void. Can you feel the intellectual tension in the air, the resistance to an idea that today seems so fundamental? But while the West grappled with this concept, a revolution was brewing in the East. Picture yourself in India, around 500 CE. You're a mathematician, and you've just had an epiphany. You've realized that nothing is not just the absence of something, it's a quantity in its own right. This is the birth of zero as we know it, a concept that would change the face of mathematics forever. The Indian mathematicians didn't stop there. They went on to develop the place value system, using zero as a placeholder. Suddenly writing large numbers became much easier. Can you imagine the excitement? The possibilities opening up before your eyes? This was more than just a new symbol. It was a new way of thinking about numbers. As you ponder this breakthrough, let's fast forward a few centuries and travel to the Islamic Golden Age. You're now in Baghdad, in the House of Wisdom. Scholars here are translating and expanding on Indian mathematical texts. They've embraced zero and are taking it to new heights. Al-Khwarizmi, the father of algebra, is using zero in complex calculations. The number zero is no longer just a placeholder. It's a number that can be used in operations, opening up whole new realms of mathematical possibility. But zero's journey was far from over. As knowledge spread along trade routes, zero made its way to Europe. Imagine you're a European merchant in the Middle Ages, struggling with Roman numerals. Multiplication and division are nightmarish tasks. Then you hear whispers of a new system from the East, one that makes calculations infinitely easier. Can you feel the mix of excitement and skepticism? Change is coming, but it won't be easy. Zero faced resistance in Europe. In some places it was associated with heretical Eastern ideas and forbidden. In others it was simply too abstract a concept for people used to counting with their fingers. Put yourself in their shoes. Can you imagine trying to wrap your head around the idea of nothing as a number? It's not as easy as it might seem from our modern perspective. But gradually, zero gained acceptance. By the Renaissance, it had become an integral part of European mathematics. You're now a scholar in a bustling Italian university town. The air is thick with new ideas, and zero is at the heart of many of them. It's enabling new forms of accounting, new ways of measuring and predicting. The world is changing, and zero is helping to drive that change. As we move into the modern era, zero takes on even greater significance. Let's jump to the 17th century. You're Isaac Newton, grappling with the concept of limits as you develop calculus. Zero is crucial here. It's the limit that a quantity approaches as it grows ever smaller. Can you feel the intellectual thrill? You're pushing the boundaries of mathematics, and zero is your ally in this endeavor. But zero isn't done surprising us yet. Fast forward to the 20th century. You're now a computer scientist working on the earliest digital computers. Suddenly, zero takes on a whole new role. In binary code, it becomes one of only 2 digits needed to represent all numbers and execute all operations. From nothing, it has become half of everything in the digital world. Can you grasp the irony? The number that represents nothing has become essential to the technology that runs our modern world. Now let's pause for a moment and reflect on the journey we've taken. From ancient clay tablets to silicon chips, zero has been there, evolving, adapting, revolutionizing. It's more than just a number, it's a testament to human ingenuity, to our ability to grapple with abstract concepts and use them to reshape our understanding of the world. But our exploration of zero is far from over. Let's dive deeper into its mathematical properties, shall we? Imagine you're back in school, learning about arithmetic for the first time. You know how to add, subtract, multiply, then your teacher introduces division by zero, and suddenly the rules seem to break down. Why can't you divide by zero? It seems like it should be possible, doesn't it? This is where zero reveals its trickster nature. Division by zero is undefined. It's a mathematical impossibility that can lead to paradoxes and logical inconsistencies. Imagine you have an equation, a0 or b. If you multiply both sides by zero, you get a gura 0xb. But anything multiplied by zero is zero, so this would mean that a dom was zero for any value of a. Can you see the problem? This would imply that all numbers are equal to zero, which is clearly nonsense. The undefined nature of division by zero has profound implications in mathematics. It's not just a quirk or an inconvenience, it's a fundamental property that shapes the way we understand and use numbers. In calculus, it leads to the concept of limits, allowing us to deal with situations where we're dividing by quantities that are approaching, but never quite reaching, zero. Now let's shift gears and think about zero in terms of geometry. Imagine you're an ancient Greek geometer, drawing circles in the sand. You know that a circle is defined by its radius, the distance from its center to its edge. But what happens if that radius is zero? You get a point, a circle with no area, no circumference. It's a boundary case, a place where geometry touches the concept of nothingness. This idea of zero as a boundary extends to other areas of mathematics too. In set theory, the empty set, a set containing no elements, plays a crucial role. It might seem trivial, a mere mathematical curiosity, but the empty set is the starting point from which all other sets can be built. From nothing, we can construct everything. Can you feel the philosophical weight of this idea? Let's push further into the realm of abstract mathematics. Imagine you're a modern algebraist working with groups, sets of elements combined with an operation that satisfies certain axioms. The concept of a zero element, or identity element, is crucial here. It's the element that, when combined with any other element, leaves that element unchanged. In the group of integers under addition, zero plays this role. In the group of real numbers under multiplication, it's 1. The idea of a zero or nothing element generalizes far beyond our everyday understanding of zero. But zero isn't content to stay in the realm of pure mathematics. It has practical applications that touch our lives every day. Think about temperature scales. The zero on the Celsius scale is the freezing point of water, an arbitrary but useful reference point. But the Kelvin scale puts its zero at absolute zero, the lowest possible temperature, where molecular motion theoretically stops. This is a profound zero, a true nothing in the physical world. Or consider finance. Zero plays a crucial role here too. A zero balance in your bank account has very real implications. But beyond that, the concept of zero interest rates has become increasingly important in modern economics. Central banks use it as a tool to stimulate economic growth. Can you imagine trying to explain this concept to an ancient Babylonian merchant? The idea that you could borrow money and not have to pay back any extra would seem like magic. Let's take another leap and consider zero in the context of computer science. In programming, zero is often used as a starting point for counting. Arrays are typically zero-indexed, meaning the first element is at position 0. This might seem like a minor detail, but it has profound implications for how we structure and manipulate data. It's a choice that reflects the underlying mathematical nature of computation, but it's not just about indexing. In Boolean logic, which underpins all digital computing, 0 represents false, while 1 represents true. This binary system, based on the presence or absence of an electrical signal, is the foundation of all digital technology. Your smartphone, your laptop, the entire internet, all of it ultimately comes down to zeros and ones. From nothing and something, we build the complex digital world we live in. Now let's zoom out and look at zero from a philosophical perspective. The concept of zero touches on deep questions about existence and nothingness. Ancient philosophers grappled with these ideas, and we're still grappling with them today. Can nothing truly exist? If it does, is it something? These questions might seem abstract, but they have real implications for how we understand the world. Consider the concept of zero in physics. In quantum mechanics, the zero-point energy is the lowest possible energy that a quantum mechanical system can have. It's not nothing. Even in its ground state, a system still has some energy. This challenges our intuitive understanding of what zero means. Can you feel your conception of nothingness shifting? Or think about the concept of absolute zero in temperature. We can get very, very close to it, but we can never quite reach it. It's a theoretical limit, much like the speed of light. These unreachable zeros shape our understanding of the physical world, defining the boundaries of what's possible. As we near the end of our journey through the history and concept of zero, let's reflect on how this simple idea has shaped our world. From its humble beginnings as a placeholder in ancient number systems, zero has become a cornerstone of mathematics, science, and technology. It's a number, a concept, a philosophical idea, a tool. It represents nothing, and yet it's key to understanding everything. Imagine for a moment a world without zero. No complex calculations, no computers, no advanced physics. Our understanding of the universe would be fundamentally limited. Zero isn't just a number. It's a gateway to higher understanding, a tool that allows us to model and manipulate the world around us. As you go about your day, take a moment to appreciate the zeros you encounter. The zero on your digital clock, marking the start of a new hour. The zero balance on your paid bill, signifying a debt cleared. The zero in the temperature forecast, hinting at a frosty morning. Each of these zeros has a history, a mathematical significance, a story to tell. And perhaps, the next time you find yourself contemplating the vastness of the universe or the nature of existence itself, spare a thought for zero. In its representation of nothing, it opens the door to understanding everything. It's the number that isn't a number, the quantity of no quantity, the presence of absence. In embracing the concept of zero, we embrace the full spectrum of mathematical thought, from the infinitesimal to the infinite. So here you stand at the end of our journey, but at the beginning of a new understanding. Zero is all around you, hidden in plain sight, shaping your world in ways you might never have imagined. It's a reminder that even nothing is something, that absence has presence, that zero is, in its own way, a hero of mathematics. And as you move forward, carrying this new appreciation for zero, remember, in the grand equation of the universe, you are far from nothing. You, like zero, contain multitudes. Imagine yourself standing at the threshold of a vast, uncharted territory. This landscape isn't physical. It's the realm of human thought and belief, stretching across millennia and spanning the globe. Your journey today will take you through the intricate tapestry of how different cultures and religions have grappled with the concept of nothingness. Are you ready? Take a deep breath and let's step into this fascinating exploration together. As you begin this journey, you might think that nothingness is simply the absence of everything, a void, a blank slate. But as you're about to discover, nothingness is anything but simple in the rich traditions of human culture and spirituality. It's a concept that has inspired awe, fear, contemplation, and enlightenment across diverse civilizations. Let's start our journey in ancient Egypt. Picture yourself standing before the Great Pyramids, feeling small in the face of these monumental structures. The ancient Egyptians had a complex relationship with nothingness. In their cosmology before creation, there was Nu or Nun, the primordial waters of chaos. This wasn't emptiness as you might imagine it, but rather a formless, infinite potential from which all of creation emerged. Can you feel the weight of this idea? Nothingness not as an empty void, but as the pregnant possibility of everything. Now transport yourself to ancient Greece. You're walking through the agora, the bustling marketplace of ideas. Here, philosophers grappled with the concept of nothingness in various ways. The atomists, like Democritus, proposed that the universe was made of indivisible atoms moving through empty space. This void, this nothingness between atoms, was as real and necessary as the atoms themselves. But others, like Parmenides, argued that vacuum or void couldn't exist. Nature abhors a vacuum, as Aristotle would later put it. Can you sense the intellectual tension, the struggle to reconcile the apparent emptiness of space with the fullness of being? Let's shift our focus eastward now. Imagine yourself sitting in meditation under a Bodhi tree in ancient India. In Hindu philosophy, the concept of shunya, or zero void, plays a crucial role. It's not just a mathematical concept, but a philosophical and spiritual one. In some schools of thought, ultimate reality is described as neti-neti, not this, not that, transcending all descriptions and categories. Can you feel your mind stretching as it tries to grasp this idea of a reality beyond all attributes? But it's in Buddhism where nothingness takes center stage. The concept of sunyata or emptiness is fundamental to Buddhist philosophy. Don't be misled by the term emptiness though. It doesn't mean a nihilistic void, but rather the idea that all phenomena lack inherent existence and are interdependent. Imagine looking at your hand and seeing not just flesh and bone, but the entire universe that made its existence possible. The food you've eaten, the air you've breathed, the sunlight that nourished the plants, the entire cosmic history leading to this moment. That's a glimpse of sunyata. It's a profound nothingness that is paradoxically everything. Now let's travel to ancient China. You're sitting in a scholar's garden, contemplating the interplay of rocks and empty space. In Taoism, the concept of wu or nothingness is central. The Tao Te Ching speaks of the usefulness of the emptiness inside a clay pot, the space between the spokes of a wheel. This nothingness isn't useless or absent, it's what gives things their function and meaning. Can you see how this shifts your perspective? How the so-called nothing becomes essential? As we move westward, we encounter the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Here, the concept of nothingness takes on different shades. In the biblical creation story, God creates the world, ex nihilo, out of nothing. This idea of creation from absolute nothingness was a radical concept in its time. Imagine the profound implications of this belief, that the entire universe was called into being from a state of complete non-existence. How does it make you feel about the nature of reality, of existence itself? In mystical traditions within these religions, nothingness often plays a crucial role in the spiritual journey. In Kabbalah, the Jewish mystical tradition, there's the concept of ayin or nothingness, which paradoxically contains all potential. In Christian mysticism, particularly in the works of Meister Eckhart, there's discussion of the Godhead, a state of divine nothingness beyond even the personal God. And in Sufi mysticism, there's the concept of fana, or annihilation of the self in the divine unity. Can you sense a pattern here? A recurring idea that ultimate reality, or the divine, somehow transcends all categories, even existence itself. Let's shift our gaze to the indigenous cultures of the Americas. Among many Native American tribes, there's a rich tradition of creation myths that often begin with a state of primordial nothingness. But this nothingness is rarely empty or static. In the Hopi tradition, for instance, there's Tokpela, the endless space from which the creator, Taioa, emerges. This nothingness is a living potentiality, pregnant with all that is to come. How does this change your perception of nothingness? Can you feel the aliveness, the potential in what we often dismiss as nothing? Now let's journey to Africa. In many African traditional religions, the concept of nothingness is often tied to ideas of primordial chaos or unformed potential. For instance, in Yoruba cosmology, there's the concept of asan, or nothingness, which existed before creation. But this nothingness wasn't inert. It was a state full of possibilities, waiting to be shaped by divine will. Can you imagine nothingness as a canvas, waiting for the brushstrokes of creation? As we traverse these different cultural and religious landscapes, you might be starting to see nothingness in a new light. It's not just absence or lack, but often a state of pure potential, a source of creativity, a pathway to spiritual insight. But our journey isn't over yet. Let's dive deeper into some of the philosophical and practical implications of these various conceptions of nothingness. In many Eastern traditions, the contemplation of nothingness, or emptiness, is not just a philosophical exercise, but a path to liberation or enlightenment. Imagine yourself in a Zen monastery, sitting in Zazen meditation. You're instructed to empty your mind, to let thoughts arise and pass without attachment. This practice of cultivating inner emptiness isn't about becoming a blank slate, but about creating space for clarity and insight. Have you ever experienced a moment of mental quiet, where the constant chatter of thoughts subsides? That glimpse of inner stillness might give you a taste of what these traditions are pointing towards. Now think about how these ideas of nothingness might apply to your daily life. In a world that often equates busyness with importance and accumulation with success, what would it mean to embrace nothingness? It might mean creating space in your schedule for reflection and creativity. It might mean letting go of unnecessary possessions or thoughts. It might mean becoming comfortable with uncertainty, with not knowing. Can you feel the potential freedom in this approach? Let's consider another angle. In many creation myths across cultures, nothingness is the state from which all of creation emerges. This idea resonates with modern scientific theories about the origin of the universe. The Big Bang Theory proposes that our universe expanded from an initial state of extreme density and temperature, a singularity that in many ways resembles the nothingness of ancient myths. Isn't it fascinating how ancient intuitions sometimes align with cutting-edge science? But the concept of nothingness isn't just about grand cosmic origins. It plays a role in personal and social dynamics too. Think about the power of silence in communication. A well-placed pause can be more eloquent than words. Or consider the Japanese concept of ma, the negative space in art and architecture that gives form and meaning to the whole. These are examples of how nothingness or emptiness can be a powerful presence in our lives and culture. As we continue our exploration, let's touch on how different conceptions of nothingness might shape attitudes towards death. In some traditions, death is seen as a return to nothingness, a complete cessation of being. How does this view make you feel? Does it fill you with dread or a sense of peace? In other traditions, what we might call nothingness is seen as a state of unity with the divine or the cosmos. The Upanishads speak of the individual self, Atman, realizing its identity with the universal self, Brahman, a state beyond all distinctions, which might appear as nothingness from our ordinary perspective. How does this shift your view of mortality? Now let's consider how ideas of nothingness might influence ethics and social behavior. In Buddhism, the realization of emptiness, sunyata, is said to naturally give rise to compassion. When you deeply understand that you have no fixed, inherent self separate from the rest of existence, how can you not feel connected to all beings? This isn't an intellectual understanding, but a lived experience. Can you imagine how truly internalizing this view might change how you interact with others, with the world? In contrast, in some interpretations of existentialist philosophy in the West, the idea that existence precedes essence, that we are born into a meaningless universe and must create our own meaning, has sometimes led to a sense of angst or despair, but it has also been seen as a call to authentic, responsible living. If you truly accepted that there's no preset meaning to life, how would that change your choices, your sense of responsibility? Let's shift gears and think about how conceptions of nothingness might influence art and creativity. Many artists speak of needing to empty themselves to allow inspiration to flow. Musicians talk about the importance of the spaces between notes. Writers emphasize the power of what's left unsaid. In a way, the artist's task is to create form out of formlessness, to bring something out of nothing. The next time you're engaged in a creative act, pay attention to the interplay between the something you're creating and the nothing it emerges from. As we near the end of our journey, let's zoom out and consider the bigger picture. Throughout history and across cultures, humans have grappled with the concept of nothingness. We've feared it, revered it, tried to understand it, and used it as a tool for spiritual growth. This persistent engagement with nothingness tells us something profound about the human experience. We are meaning-making creatures, forever trying to understand our place in the cosmos, and paradoxically, it's often in contemplating nothingness that we find our deepest insights about the nature of existence. Think about your own life. How often do you encounter nothingness? Perhaps in the quiet moments before sleep, or in the gap between breaths during meditation. Maybe in the vastness of a clear night sky, or in the pause before making a life-changing decision. These moments of nothing are often when we feel most alive, most in touch with the mystery of existence. As you go about your day after this exploration, you might start noticing nothingness in new ways. The empty space in a room might start to feel alive with potential. The silence between words in a conversation might take on new significance. You might find yourself more comfortable with uncertainty, with not knowing. You might even start to question the very distinction between something and nothing. Remember, the ideas we've explored aren't just abstract concepts. They've shaped civilizations, inspired art, influenced scientific inquiry, and guided countless individuals on their personal and spiritual journeys. They continue to do so today. In grappling with nothingness, we're engaging with one of the most fundamental aspects of human experience, our relationship with existence itself. So as our journey comes to a close, take a moment to sit with the idea of nothingness. Close your eyes if you like. What do you see in the darkness behind your eyelids? What do you feel in the silence? This nothingness that you're experiencing, is it truly empty or is it full of potential? Is it separate from you or are you part of it? These are the questions that humans have been asking for millennia and that you're now part of. As you open your eyes and return to your day, carry with you this expanded perspective on nothingness. Let it inform how you see the world, how you make decisions, how you relate to others. Remember that in many traditions, it's in embracing nothingness that we paradoxically become most fully ourselves. And perhaps, in the spaces between your thoughts, in the pauses between your actions, you might just catch a glimpse of the profound nothingness that has fascinated and inspired humans throughout history. In that moment, you'll be connecting with a tradition as old as humanity itself, the endless dance between being a non-being, form and emptiness, something and nothing. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a vast, empty expanse. There's no horizon, no sky, no ground beneath your feet, just an infinite void stretching in all directions. How do you feel in this moment? Scared, liberated, overwhelmed, peaceful? This mental exercise isn't just a flight of fancy. It's a gateway into understanding the profound psychological and existential implications of nothingness that shape your everyday life in ways you might not even realize. As you contemplate this imaginary void, you're engaging with a concept that has fascinated and terrified humans for millennia. Nothingness, the absence of everything, the void, the abyss, is a notion that can shake you to your very core. It challenges your sense of self, your understanding of reality, and your place in the universe. But don't worry, you're not alone in this existential quandary. Philosophers, psychologists, and ordinary people like yourself have been grappling with these ideas throughout history. Let's start by considering how the concept of nothingness affects your everyday psychology. Think about the last time you were truly alone, with no distractions, no noise, nothing to occupy your mind. How did you feel? For many people, this experience can be profoundly uncomfortable. You might have felt an urge to fill the silence with music, to occupy your hands with your phone, to do anything to escape the emptiness. Why is that? This aversion to nothingness is deeply ingrained in human psychology. From an evolutionary perspective, emptiness and silence could signal danger, a lack of resources, an absence of your social group, or the calm before a predator strikes. Even in our modern world, far removed from these primal threats, this instinct persists. It manifests in your fear of boredom, your discomfort with silence, your constant need for stimulation and distraction. But what if, instead of running from this nothingness, you chose to embrace it? This is the core of many meditation practices. When you sit in meditation, allowing thoughts to arise and pass without attachment, you're essentially cultivating a comfort with inner emptiness. It's not easy. Your mind will rebel, throwing up thoughts, memories, plans, anything to fill the void. But if you persist, you might discover something profound, that this nothingness is not something to be feared, but a source of peace and clarity. Now let's delve deeper into the existential implications of nothingness. Imagine for a moment that you're contemplating your own mortality. It's not a comfortable thought, is it? The idea that one day you will cease to be, that your consciousness will blink out of existence. For many, this is the ultimate confrontation with nothingness. How does it make you feel? Does it fill you with dread, or does it inspire you to live more fully? This confrontation with personal non-existence is at the heart of existential philosophy. Thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus grappled with the implications of living in a universe that appears indifferent to human existence, where life has no inherent meaning beyond what we choose to give it. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? The idea that you're ultimately responsible for creating meaning in your life, that there's no cosmic plan or purpose to fall back on. But before you spiral into existential despair, consider this. Doesn't this apparent meaninglessness also grant you incredible freedom? If there's no preset purpose to your life, then you're free to create your own. Every choice you make, every value you uphold, every goal you pursue, these are all acts of meaning-making in the face of nothingness. It's a tremendous responsibility, but also an exhilarating opportunity. Think about how this perspective might change your approach to life. If you truly internalize the idea that this life is all there is, that there's no cosmic scorekeeper tallying your achievements, how would that affect your choices? Would you take more risks? Would you be kinder to others, knowing that their existence is as precarious and meaningful as your own? Would you spend more time doing what truly matters to you, rather than what you think you should do? Of course, this existential freedom can also be terrifying. It's what Sartre called the anguish of freedom. The vertigo-inducing realization that you're entirely responsible for your choices and their consequences. There's no cosmic authority to blame, no predetermined fate to fall back on. just you making choices in the face of an indifferent universe. It's enough to make anyone feel a little queasy, isn't it? But let's shift gears for a moment and consider how the concept of nothingness plays into your sense of self. Who are you really? If you start peeling away layers, your job, your relationships, your possessions, your memories, what's left? Is there an essential you at the core, or is your sense of self just an illusion constructed moment by moment? This is not just a philosophical puzzle. It has real psychological implications. Research in cognitive science and Buddhism-inspired psychology suggests that our sense of a fixed, unchanging self is largely an illusion. Your consciousness is more like a river than a rock, constantly flowing, changing, with no fixed essence. How does this idea sit with you? Does it make you feel unstable, or does it give you a sense of freedom? Embracing this emptiness of self can be profoundly liberating. If you're not fixed, if you're constantly changing, then you're not bound by your past or by others' expectations. You're free to reinvent yourself, to grow, to become. But it also means accepting a kind of fundamental groundlessness. There's no solid you to cling to when things get tough. Now let's consider how the concept of nothingness affects your relationships with others. Paradoxically, truly embracing the idea of personal nothingness or emptiness can lead to a deeper sense of connection with others. If you don't have a fixed, separate self, then the boundaries between you and others start to blur. You might begin to see how deeply interconnected you are with everyone and everything around you. This shift in perspective can have profound implications for empathy and compassion. If you truly internalize the idea that others, like you, are facing the existential void, creating meaning in the face of meaninglessness, how might that change how you treat them? You might find yourself becoming more patient, more understanding, more willing to extend kindness to others who are, like you, just trying to make sense of this strange experience of existence. But the psychological implications of nothingness aren't all positive. For some people, confronting the idea of nothingness can trigger intense anxiety or depression. This is what existential therapists call an existential crisis, a period of intense questioning of one's purpose, values, and meaning in life. Have you ever experienced something like this? Perhaps after a major life change, a loss, or simply in a quiet moment when the usual distractions fell away. These existential crises can be deeply distressing. You might feel a sense of groundlessness, as if the assumptions you've built your life on are crumbling beneath your feet. You might grapple with questions that seem to have no answers. Why am I here? What's the point of all this? What happens when I die? It can feel like you're staring into an abyss, and the abyss is staring back. But here's the thing. These crises, while painful, can also be opportunities for growth. They can shake you out of complacency, forcing you to reevaluate what truly matters to you. They can be the catalyst for profound personal change, pushing you to live more authentically, more in line with your deepest values. Have you ever emerged from a period of intense questioning, feeling somehow more solid, more sure of yourself and your path in life? Let's explore another facet of nothingness, the concept of potential. In many Eastern philosophies, nothingness or emptiness is not seen as a barren void, but as a field of pure potential. It's the blank canvas, waiting for the artist's brush, the silence waiting for the musician's note. How might your life change if you viewed the empty spaces in your life this way? Think about the moments of transition in your life, the space between jobs, the pause between relationships, the quiet hours before sleep or upon waking. Often, these in-between times can feel uncomfortable, even anxiety-inducing. You might feel an urge to fill them, to move quickly from one thing to the next. But what if you viewed these empty spaces as pregnant with possibility instead? This shift in perspective can be incredibly empowering. Instead of fearing empty time or space in your life, you might come to welcome it. You might find yourself creating more of these empty moments, recognizing them as opportunities for creativity, growth, and renewal. Can you feel how this might change your relationship with boredom, with silence, with solitude? Now Now let's consider how the concept of nothingness relates to your search for meaning and purpose. In a universe that appears indifferent to human concerns, where do you find meaning? This is a question that has haunted philosophers and ordinary people alike for centuries. But perhaps the answer lies not in finding meaning, but in creating it. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist who survived the Nazi concentration camps, developed a school of therapy based on this idea. He argued that the primary human drive is not pleasure or power, but the search for meaning. And this meaning, he said, could be found even in the most dire circumstances, even in the face of suffering and death. How does this resonate with you? Can you think of times in your life when you found or created meaning in challenging circumstances? This perspective offers a powerful antidote to existential despair. Even if the universe is meaningless, even if you're ultimately faced with nothingness, you have the power to create meaning in each moment through your choices and actions. It's a tremendous responsibility, but also an incredible opportunity. How might your life change if you fully embrace this power to create meaning? Let's shift our focus now to how the concept of nothingness plays into your experience of time. Have you ever noticed how your perception of time changes depending on your mental state? How a boring hour can seem to stretch on forever, while a day spent in enjoyable activities can fly by in a flash. This subjective experience of time is intimately tied to your relationship with nothingness. When you're fully engaged in an activity, when you're in what psychologists call a flow state, your sense of self tends to fade away. You become so absorbed in what you're doing that you lose track of time, of your surroundings, even of your own existence. In these moments, you're touching a kind of nothingness, a dissolution of the boundaries between self and activity. And paradoxically, these moments often feel incredibly rich and fulfilling. On the flip side, when you're bored or anxious, time can seem to stretch endlessly. These are the moments when you're most acutely aware of yourself, when the chatter of your mind is loudest. It's as if you're trying to fill the void with thoughts, plans, worries, anything to escape the discomfort of empty time. Can you recognize this pattern in your own life? Understanding this dynamic can be incredibly valuable. It suggests that embracing a kind of nothingness, a letting go of self-consciousness, a full engagement with the present moment, can lead to some of your most satisfying experiences. How might you cultivate more of these moments in your life? As we near the end of our exploration, let's consider one final aspect of nothingness, its role in creativity and innovation. Many artists, scientists, and thinkers have spoken about the importance of emptiness in the creative process. It's in the gaps, the pauses, the moments of not knowing that new ideas often emerge. Think about your own creative process, whether you're solving a problem at work, creating art, or simply coming up with a new idea. How often does the solution seem to come out of nowhere? Perhaps when you're in the shower or taking a walk, or just as you're falling asleep. These moments of apparent nothingness are often when your unconscious mind is free to make new connections, to see things in a new light. This suggests that nothingness, far from being empty or useless, is an essential part of the creative process. It's the fertile void from which new ideas spring. How might your life change if you actively cultivated more of these empty moments? If you resisted the urge to constantly fill your time with activity and instead allowed yourself periods of unstructured time, of daydreaming, of simply being? As we conclude this journey through the psychological and existential implications of nothingness, take a moment to reflect on how these ideas resonate with you. Perhaps you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, grappling with concepts that challenge your usual way of thinking, or maybe you're feeling a sense of excitement, of new possibilities opening up. Remember, the goal isn't to have all the answers. In fact, becoming comfortable with not knowing, with the fundamental uncertainty of existence, is part of what this exploration of nothingness is all about. It's about learning to dance with the void, to find freedom in emptiness, to create meaning in the face of meaninglessness. As you go about your day, Try to notice the moments of nothingness in your life, the pauses between breaths, the blank page before you start writing, the silence between notes in a piece of music. Rather than rushing to fill these empty spaces, what if you allowed yourself to linger in them? What insights might emerge? What new possibilities might you discover? In embracing nothingness, you're not embracing nihilism or despair. Rather, you're opening yourself to the full spectrum of human experience. You're acknowledging the reality of impermanence, of uncertainty, of the fundamental groundlessness of existence. And in doing so, you're also opening yourself to the profound freedom, creativity, and connection that can emerge from this acceptance. So the next time you find yourself facing the void, whether it's a moment of boredom, a period of transition in your life, or a late-night contemplation of your own mortality, remember this journey we've taken. Remember that nothingness is not just an absence, but a presence. It's the space in which your life unfolds, the canvas on which you paint your experiences, the silence from which your unique voice emerges. In the end, your relationship with nothingness is your relationship with life itself. By learning to embrace emptiness, to find peace in silence, to create meaning in the face of meaninglessness, you're not just confronting the void, you're learning to dance with it. And in that dance, you might just discover a deeper, richer, more authentic way of being in the world.